Today's date is Tuesday, March 18th, 2014. It is 08:28 hours. This is Detective Stone with the Albuquerque Police Department here at the Family Advocacy Center at 625 Silver. This is an investigation into an officer-involved shooting that happened near 812 Piedra Vista Road, Northeast. This is in reference to case number 140023683. And present in this room, we'll just go around the table.
Agent Hal Cage, Mexico State Police. Detective Rick Ingram.
Fred Maurer here on behalf of Detective Rick Ingram.
All right. And this interview is going to be with Detective Rick Ingram. Let's just go ahead and start off with Rick. How do you spell your first name, your full first name?
It's Richard, R-I-C-H-A-R-D.
And spell your last name for me.
It's I-N-G-R-A-M.
And what's your MAN number?
3352. What's that? 3352?
And who are you employed with?
The City of Albuquerque, currently assigned to the Special Investigation Division, Criminal Section, and the Repeat Offender Project.
Okay. And what is your call sign?
On this date, it was 840 Adam. My normal call sign is 841.
Okay. So the call sign you normally use when you're not acting supervisor, 841.
That's correct.
But were you acting supervisor at that time?
Yes, I was.
Okay, so you were 840 Adam.
Yes.
Okay. So if I look on the CADs, that's the call sign.
840 Adam. Yes.
Awesome. Okay. How long have you been with the police department?
Just a little over 10 years.
Okay. And can you just kind of run through the various positions you've held while in the department?
I was a field service officer for about 7 years, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I worked as a training officer, ERT, and then went into special investigation divisions and worked gangs for almost 3 years. And then the last year I've been with the Repeat Offender Project.
Okay, cool. Let's see. So, what I'm going to do, now that we got the particulars out of the way, is I'm just going to give you the floor, and I'm just going to let you run me through your involvement in this case, everything that you saw and observed on that day.
Okay. It was Sunday. I was actually having a really good day off, did some yard work. I took my daughter to soccer practice. One of the guys had informed me that we were having a TDY officer this week. It was about 5:30. I had just left soccer practice. So I called that TDY officer to let him know about the schedule for this week and what we were going to do. Got off the phone with him. Keith Sandy called me, said that he'd had radio request him as a call out. And his specifics he didn't have yet. He said that they were requesting our taser shotguns, something that we it's a tool we have in the Repeat Offender Project. I'm assigned one and I'm certified and qualified with one. I was acting sergeant, so I told him I would also be en route so that we would have two there if that was the case. So I got home, changed my gear real quick from PT pose at the soccer field to something a little bit more presentable for work. Drove to town. Traffic was actually pretty good on the way to town. Surprising for a Sunday. I didn't have to really push that hard to get up there. I called radio after I got Keith on rope air. He said that he thought it was subject armed with knives that assaulted some officers and that he was en route. He asked me to check with radio to ensure K9 was en route. So I called radio. I had her log me on by radio because my computer wasn't up and running yet. I inquired about K9. She said that she'd already paged out, I believe it was 756 and 754, and she informed me that 729, which is McFarland, was also already en route. Radio gave me an approach route. I think it was to Tramway to Copper, and then Copper to Turner, north on Turner to La Cueva, back that way to Piedra Vista. Listening to the Foothills dispatch on the way up there, sounded like 755 was on scene. That's Carpenter. Sounded like they would engage with somebody on the hilltop that was open space had been there. I didn't have all the particulars at the time. I got to the scene, parked out front of 812 Piedra Vista, proceeded to go ahead and suit out with my normal gear for rope, which is a I put my soft body armor on, put my hard body armor on, and it's plainly visible marked. I ended up thinking about the time at that time of day, so I took off my sunglasses and put on clear eye protection. I got my taser shotgun and my rifle, started to walk across the street. The homeowner there was really receptive to police. She informed me that I could go through her yard, so she immediately pointed me in the direction of her yard. So I went through her yard, got through the gate, started to traverse the open space area. Immediately encountered Keith Sandy, who was kind of on the trail. For landmarks, there was a really large tree directly east of 812 Piedra Vista. He was kind of out in the open, which made me kind of nervous immediately because I didn't know. I could see the subject up on the hill near a rock grouping. I could see that there was several field guys around him. They were very close to him, which made me nervous. There was a large rock, again for landmark, that was immediately south of the tree. Keith Sandy was with his rifle. He was kind of pointed up the hill at that time. He had his shotgun taser with him, and Ken Ranzone was relatively quickly on scene, and he was to the north of that tree. So there was Keith Sandy and Ken Ranzone. We ended up standing there for a few minutes, trying to get our bearings and get what was going on. I think it was Ken Ranzone ended up getting with McFarland, who showed up, and ended up deploying him to the south side with a field officer to try to get containment, so that we would have some kind of containment on the subject in the open space area. The field guys were still conversing with him. I think it was Sergeant Carpenter had a beanbag. Once we got into a little bit better position, there was a Monette, a field officer, who was further down the hill, had a nice rock for cover, and that was probably about 30 yards between the tree, and we ended up moving up to his position. When we moved up to his position, Keith Sandy asked me to hold his shotgun taser. So now I had two shotgun tasers. So I slung one. Keith was on rifle for lethal coverage. We had the field officer that was there report back to not necessarily the staging area, but to the trailhead, so that he could be redeployed. And I'm not sure where he went from there. We were joined by Scott Weimskirch. I'll just say his call sign from now on, so it's a little bit easier for me to remember. 754. He was there with his police service dog. Once at that rock, we ended up trying to converse with him. Skirch kind of took the lead on that, or 754 took the lead on that. He ended up trying to talk to the male subject. During that time, Ken Ranzone had met with the officers that were on scene initially, the open space guys, and he'd confirmed that at some point in time they were called up there for a transient that was living up there. They said they confronted him about moving, and he had drew two knives, and he confirmed that they were assaulted by him by the knives. That was important for Detective Sandy and I, because that meant that subject had committed 2 felonies at that time. 754 ended up conversing back and forth. The man's demeanor was often scattered. He would say, he'd start off, "Hey, what can we call you? What's your name?" And he said, "You can call me sir." There was a state officer, I believe his last name was Ware. He was there before we got there. He had moved back to where the trailhead was, and Boyd ended up, and I'll say that's what the name we knew afterwards. The subject, Boyd, started yelling at him, started saying that he didn't want him there, that he was going to kill him and take his hat, which was kind of significant to me, because that was like a major sign of disrespect, because he was distinguishing between the two different departments, because the state police officers wear hats traditionally anytime they're outside the car, and we don't. So he was telling them, "I'm going to take your hat. I'm going to kill you and take your hat." He would often go from that conversation back to kind of talking with 754, and he would discuss, like, I just want to go back to my family. He was talking about the officers told him that he would get a hotel room for a week, and that he made a distinction between hotel rooms that made significance to me, is that he wanted a motel because he wanted to be able to lock the door right. He didn't want a hotel that had a hallway. He wanted a motel, which was odd to me at the time. I'm also CIT trained, and it's been a while since I've been in the field talking to mental patients, but I understood and listening to him that some of his speaking was irrational and delusional. He went into that he was working on Department of Defense things. He talked about that he had secrets that he was emailing and nobody would talk to him about it. He said that the FBI, he almost got arrested at the FBI for trying to give his secrets, and that he had almost got arrested by the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department for also trying to do the same thing. He said that he wanted to go back to his family. When asked about the family, he'd get very aggressive. Well, where's your family at, is what I think 754 asked him, and he's like, don't worry about it. It's none of your fucking business. He, at one point, got very agitated. I was watching him because I was the less lethal option. It appeared to me he had 2 t-shirts on, and then he had like a button-up shirt or zip-up shirt over that. He had like black BDU style pants. He had a long beard, and he had glasses on, and they were tinted, so he had sunglasses on. He would pace back and forth from rock to rock at the top of the outcropping. At one point, he got very agitated when we told him, hey, why don't you come down? Take off your knives and come down. And he'd get mad and he'd say, you have no authority to take me up this hill. When he got very mad, he would reach to his waist and he would grab 2 knives out of his pockets. And after a couple times of him doing this, I noticed it was much like us. I could assimilate it to us practicing holstering our weapon. He was very, very practiced, and it looked to me like he'd rehearsed how to draw his knives out of his pockets. And he would do it in such a fashion that it was very quick. Both knives would come out of his pockets about the same time, one in each hand, and he had them in the open configuration. So they were, 4 or 5 inch blades for me, and I could clearly see them from when we moved up to that secondary rock, which was from his position probably about 30, 40 yards away. That conversation continued. He would de-escalate. He put the knives back in his pockets, but he'd be very careful how he put them back in his pockets. I watched him a lot. He would put them back so that he could easily grasp them back and get them back in his hands very quickly. He was walking back and forth, and I'll draw a picture if you wish.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, why don't you?
He would walk back and forth from the outcroppings, and he was saying things like,
You're just going to do the whole area?
Yep. Why don't you just draw a map of the whole area?
Give them a diagram of the area, and then you can...
I'll try to use the space as much as I can.
No problem. I understand that
It's got to be
us
scale.
police officers are not very good at
Yeah,
drawing.
do it at scale.
It's a big tree.
And if you could just label things that you draw. Thanks.
I just use these as landmarks because of where we were at.
Okay. And what's that?
That's the big stone I told you was directly south.
Okay.
We traversed through the middle here.
Okay.
There's a large boulder. That's where we initially took cover.
Okay. Can you just put an X for you and put number 1 for where you first went to?
Okay, so as we look, that's where the large outcropping was, and it doesn't do it justice because the elevation changed between here.
Absolutely. Okay.
These are more. This is another line of boulders.
Okay.
He had a couple boulders in this fashion. And when I say the subject would go back, he'd go between boulders up here, and there was a little bit of an outcropping space that he spent here. So at this time, we were Keith Sandy, 754, and his police service dog were initially here when we were trying to make a good.
Write their names of where they were.
Or just put a circle in a triangle, and then you can put Sandy as the circle and the dog as the triangle. Makes it easy for you. I think.
I'll just use his call sign. His call sign was 842.
Sandy's was?
Yes.
Okay.
And then me. I was on the right side of the rock with my taser shotgun. Keith was here. And he was 754 was floating back behind us as he tried to converse with the subject. I understood that his camp, I believe, was back under here, but he didn't go back there initially. He stayed out here conversing with us, and we had good, clear line of sight at this point.
Can you just put like subject or how?
Yeah, that works.
Off to the south, we had 729.
Okay.
And he was off to the south.
And who's 729?
That was McFarland.
McFarland.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
he had somebody else with him, but I don't know who it was.
Okay.
We were talking here about our decisions. He was really high above us at this point. He had a high ground advantage, which that troubled me greatly, because if he had a weapon other than his knives, he could inflict a lot of harm on us and also the houses that were further down.
Okay.
So us maintaining this position prevented him to getting to the houses, which was one of our goals. I believe 756 took manpower and went to the north so that they could have containment to the north, because we didn't want him leaving.
And who was 756?
That was Ken Runzone.
Okay.
Now, as we're conversing with him, he's coming back and forth between these rocks, and he's talking to us. And like I said, he's going back and forth from his rational thinking, which you think he's like, yeah, I want to go back to my family. And then he'd go back into, I'm not a rapist. I'm not a homeless person. I'm not going back to prison. He said he'd done 10 years in prison.
Mm-hmm.
He said, at this point, he ended up telling us that he'd been killed twice and he committed suicide twice. And that he came back. He said if he wanted to kill us, that he would, but he would bring us back. But he would not bring the state officer back, because he didn't like him.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So he would say, I'll bring you back, but I'm not bringing that stater back. He goes, and he referred to him as the hat. He would go back and forth. I'm not bringing that hat back. I will bring you back, but I'm not going to bring him back.
Gotcha.
At some point, and this goes on for a while, and he does pull his knives. I end up trying to converse with him a little bit and say, hey, this is over. Let's just put down your knives. You want a place to stay. Let's walk down the hill and we'll be able to talk about it. He ends up exploding on me, going nuts, telling me, you have no authority. You have no right to take my weapons. Again, he draws them out very quickly, like in a rehearsed fashion, and he's like, you have no right. You're not listening to me. He gets very, very aggressive. Tells us again, I'll fucking kill you. If you come up here and try to take me into custody, I'll fucking kill you.
Okay.
At one point, the sun's going down, and we're kind of knowing that based off this outcropping, he's got some areas of cover, especially if he chose to use them. But as night comes, he's got high ground, and the sun is going down, and we know that that light is going to be important for us to keep. Because we can't, as long as we can see him, we can kind of tell where he's doing and where he's going, but we can't tell, if it goes dark, we're not going to be able to see him. We can't get light up there, especially behind this outcropping. And we're kind of nervous about this outcropping, because we can tell as soon as he gets about this point, we start to lose him.
Mm-hmm.
He goes back to this point and he grabs like a biscuit, is the best, or a piece of bread. He comes back out here and he throws it at us.
Okay.
That, to me, initially didn't seem like, well, that's just him doing his thing, you know. But I can see on the top of this boulder what I believe is a large rock. So me being the less lethal guy, I'm thinking there's a reason why he threw that at us. And I'm starting to I'm starting to put this, he's got high ground, and I'm thinking he's starting to gauge or be able to effectively tell exactly how far away we are from him. And I'm not sure why, but I'm nervous with that at that point, because I'm thinking if he tries to start throwing things at us, I'm the less lethal guy, so I'm gonna have to try to achieve compliance with him to stop him from throwing things.
Right.
So I'm already nervous about that. He walks back towards this outcropping, and when he walks back towards this outcropping, he's out of view. These guys say that they can't see what he's doing. 754, who's basically running this part of the scene because of his police service dog, he identifies that, says, I don't like that. He's in the back of that outcropping. I can't tell what he's doing. So we make a decision to move from this rock up to these rocks.
Okay.
That decision is based on a couple different factors. Number one, that's going to give us on a level or more level playing field with him, because he's so much higher than us from here.
Okay.
And we're talking, a great distance, where at this one is probably relatively 20, 30 feet higher than where we are.
Okay. Could you write that on there? And I know it's an approximate.
It's a guess,
right?
But it is quite a distance up.
Gotcha.
Getting to these rocks affords us the position of being able to tell what he's doing back behind there.
Okay.
Still gives us a little bit of cover, not as ideal cover as this one, but it still affords us cover here and gets us away from that high ground position that he has on us.
Okay.
But it also gives us a clear line of sight to tell what he's doing back here.
Okay. Could you just put like a line saying movement to that area, so I can remember?
Yes. He ends up coming back and forth between these some more, and he's conversing, and he's still doing that rant. If you come up here, I'm gonna fucking kill you.
Okay.
That stone is still right here. He tells us, I'm gonna go get some water and a sandwich. So he walks back over here, he gets a water and a sandwich. He comes walking back out with a water bottle and a sandwich. And the sandwich is like in a wrapper, and we're point here. And what happens is he comes back over here, he sees the dog, and he's not wanting to talk to the dog specifically. Keep those together. But he ends up chucking the sandwich at us, and the dog just flips out. The dog quickly takes off. Takes off, he's on a leash. He has to grab him back. The handler, 754, grabs him back and pulls him back. He's like, yeah, feed your dog. And again, I'm thinking, as the less lethal guy, that's my primary focus, is the less lethal point, is that now he's thrown the second item at us, and it's not necessarily just a sandwich. He's now figured out we're a little bit closer, and he's testing that theory of how close we are to him. We had talked about back and forth that he had shirts on, and we talked about the deployment of the taser shotgun. Because he had that many shirts on, I was concerned that there might not be the taser shotgun wasn't going to be as effective if I try to hit him, in the lower center mass. Because I'm thinking he's got so many shirts on, those barbs aren't going to make good contact. So I'm watching him, and I'm watching him a lot because I'm looking for his pant line, thinking, can I get him in like the lower pelvis, maybe upper thigh area, and still be able to hit a good center mass portion of him, and get that compliance. I think he has a cell phone case on, and I'm watching to see if I can tell how many pairs of pants he has on. So he has those black BDU pants on as he walks back and forth. At one point, he comes over here. He goes to his bags, which makes us nervous.
Okay.
He comes back out and he starts to put on, he's standing kind of high, he puts a gray sweatshirt on. And again, being a less lethal guy, I'm thinking, okay, now he's padding up more stuff. He sees the dog, he sees me, he knows I don't have a rifle, so he's thinking I'm something else besides that. So he puts his gray shirt on. We call it out to everybody, hey, he's putting on a gray sweatshirt. He takes off his sunglasses, which they're like the metallic lenses that go on your glasses, so he still has glasses on, but he takes the glasses off. So again, it is getting close to dusk, so I know he's To me, he's prepping himself for the light condition to change. He puts his gray sweatshirt on. And he tells us very specifically, you see this gray sweatshirt? It's nice, isn't it? It was a gift. He goes, if you get my blood or your blood on this, I'll kill you. So we we see that this is coming. The conversation between 754 and him is still going on. Why don't you just put your stuff down? He gets animated behind here again. He grabs his knives out again. You have no right to take these off of me. He tells me, I'll fucking kill you. He's like, if you send your dog up here, I like dogs. I don't want to kill your dog, but if you send him up here, I'll fucking kill your dog. So Keith and 754 and I, we kind of understand that this is, negotiations have gone nowhere with this guy. He's making no sense sometimes, and other times he will calm down and just, he's just completely irrational, scattered thinking. He says, I'll get my stuff and I'll come down. And we tell him, you cannot go down with those weapons. He gets excited again, does the same thing. And at this point, at the outcropping that he's at from ours position, it's probably 18 to 20 yards, I'm guessing. He ends up going back to there and he gets a satchel, I want to say it's like a camera case or a vinyl case. And he puts that on, which is kind of alarming to me again, our distance and what could be in that bag. He grabs a backpack. I couldn't tell you what color it was. And he moves a couple things to the first rock in this outcropping. There's another little ravine that goes this way.
Okay.
He moves his bags to right there and he looks at us and he tells us, I'm going to come down, but I'm not taking my weapons off. And Scourge tells him, we can't let you do that, or something to that effect. I don't know his exact language. Keith and 754 are talking when he comes around that he's going to deploy a bang, that he's going to put a bang here.
Okay.
The plan that I understood was we wanted to stack those less lethal options on him to effectively get him into custody safely. So when the bang goes, and the idea behind the bang is that it's going to disorient him. And when he's disoriented, I'm going to deploy the taser shotgun rounds because I know that he's armed and he's demonstrated the fact that he can pull those out really, really quick. I'm going to hit him with the taser shotgun rounds to effectively get compliance from him. I don't know what 754's plan with the dog was at that time. I just know that when he is disoriented, that's the most optimal time for me to deploy a less lethal option on him. He bends down behind this rock to grab the bag, it looks like, and he turns around. As he's turning around, Keith deploys the bang. Keith throws it almost to his feet, but instead of it landing there and staying at his feet, it kind of goes off the side into the rock.
Okay.
The bang goes off, and Boyd's demeanor, which is, again, is not consistent with somebody I would think would be rational. The bang goes off, and it almost agitates him because he drops his stuff. It's not really bright when it goes off there because of the position with the stuff, but the concussion is definitely loud. It definitely has full effect. Most people, it is a disorienting noise and flash. It doesn't seem to bother him. He drops his things, and at this time, I'm now up on my shotgun taser. I can see his waistline pretty good. So the bang goes off, and I have to think about it. I'm waiting to see what he's doing. I fire the first shotgun round, and I'm trying to hit his pelvis area. I can see that he still has his hands now free, and he's going towards his waistline, which I know that's where his pockets are. I chamber the round, come back up on target, and I'm so focused on just delivering my shotgun taser rounds, I don't know where the dog's at. I think the dog's in between us, and I fired the second shotgun round relatively close to the first shotgun round. I don't know exactly the spacing and time, but I try to keep it as close as possible. He doesn't appear to me to be the full neuromuscular incapacitation. I can't He's not locked out. He's not shaking like somebody would normally do for tasing. He's still going to his pockets. And when he's going to his pockets, I know his knives are there. He's getting the knives out, and he's starting to pull them out of his pockets at the time. As he's pulling them out, it appears to me that he's trying to negotiate or maneuver to his left around where the dog and where the path is.
Okay.
So I'm thinking he's trying to flank the dog and move, but I can't tell how far he's moving because Keith moves. He's just a little ahead of me with 754.
Okay.
754 steps forward a little bit more, and Keith steps into my path. So I don't have the same line of fire on the subject as I did because now Keith is in front of me. I have to maneuver around a bush and a tree to come back up online with them.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm maneuvering, that's when I hear a shot. Now at this time, we're probably less than 10 yards from the subject. I'm trying to maneuver around the tree, and Keith and 754 are kind of online up in front of me.
Okay.
I come around. I don't know how many shots were fired. I know the first one. As I come around, the subject's spinning, traversing this way across his left side,
Mm-hmm.
and he falls between a rock, and I can see that his hand still has the large knife, and he still has the knife up in his hand when he falls down and it lands on top of a boulder. We immediately stop because we don't know what his condition is, and we start giving him commands. I started giving him commands. I think initially I was trying to tell him to put his arms straight out from him
Mm-hmm.
and to drop the knife. I hear him breathing, and I can tell that he's breathing pretty labored. And I give him a command that says, get your hands out. He goes, I can't move. Something to that effect. Very underneath his breath, but he can't. I think it's Ramon Ornelas comes up behind us, as well as Don Pettis. I didn't know where he came from, but they came up through the ravine where we were at. We give him more commands, and again, he still has that in his hand. He gives a beanbag. I'm not sure how many, but he does give him a beanbag round, or applies a beanbag round to his lower extremities or backside to try to make sure that he's not playing possum and going to jump up. He ends up coming, gives the beanbag round, and no reaction from Boyd. A couple of the SWAT guys step up. I step up along one side. I didn't have gloves on yet. Ramon Ornelas had gloves on, so he immediately went to handcuffing and providing first aid.
Mm-hmm.
I helped him. I ended up getting my glove on, and I helped him with his, I believe it was his right hand, the one with the knife.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody had kicked it out before I got there. I'd end up helping him move the right hand back so that he can get it handcuffed.
Okay.
Once he was handcuffed, we kind of secured the area. I noticed that the camp was still up there. I sent Keith and Dom Pettis up there to clear that because we didn't know if anybody else was up there or if there's any type of other sabotage or anything. So I sent them up there to clear that. Once they had that cleared, we came back down to about this area of the outcropping.
Okay.
At that time, Jim Fox was in between here, and he says to me, Rick, are you acting? I said, yes, I am. He goes, grab Keith and take him back to your truck. So I grabbed Keith, we walked down, we went back to the truck, and I know the SWAT guys provided the first aid and stuff, and we were gone within a few minutes. I had Keith back at the truck. I had him take his rifle off and stuff like that, set it down on the truck, and have him take a seat. That was the extent. I didn't have anything to do with this first aid or anything like that.
Okay. All right. And that basically ended your involvement?
Yes.
Okay.
It'd be easier if I could go off my notes because I could stay chronological order a little better.
No, definitely. It's okay.
Good job.
It's no problem. Just going to go back a little bit, talk about some things, okay?
Okay.
So let's go back to your uniform real quick. You had mentioned that you initially, before you got the call, were in some kind of like PT gear.
Yes.
And then You had, before leaving, switched out to a more appropriate attire?
Yes, I was wearing khaki pants.
Okay.
I had a light blue t-shirt on. When I get to the scene, I put on my soft body armor, and then I put on my plate carrier, which is OD green, and it's got the police placards all over it.
Police patches, so it identifies you as a police officer?
Yes.
Okay. What about the back? Your back, does it say anything?
It's got a large police patch.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. What type of vehicle were you driving?
I was driving a black, unmarked Chevy truck.
Okay. And when you started ascending up the hill towards Boyd, what equipment did you have on you?
I had 2 shotgun tasers.
Okay.
I had my department rifle. I almost fell when I stepped off from this rock.
Okay. When you guys were moving to the second rock?
Yes.
Okay.
And it was actually bad. But yeah, I had 2 shotgun tasers and my department rifle, my plate carrier, which has extra ammo, a flashbang, my digital recorder.
Okay. Cool. You said at one point, who passed you their taser shotgun?
Keith Sandy. He was the initial responding with the taser shotgun.
Yeah.
Because he was on point with his rifle, he didn't want to hold his taser shotgun, so I ended up holding his taser shotgun. The plan would have been to give it to somebody else if that came about, so that we'd have 2 to utilize. At that point, we didn't have a position for it.
Gotcha.
So it didn't come to plan at that time.
Okay.
So that's why I was holding 2.
Okay. And which shotgun did you sling?
One of the taser shotguns. They're almost identical.
Okay. Do you know if it was yours or Keith Sandy's?
It was Keith Sandy's.
Okay, cool. And can you just briefly describe what the taser shotgun looks like?
It's a Mossberg shotgun that has a yellow foreign and yellow stock. That sets it apart as a less lethal option for us. It has just a basic sling. That's all. It's got ghost sights, so it's nothing other than the yellow identifies it as a less lethal option.
Okay. And that yellow is there so you don't mistake it for a real shotgun?
That's correct.
Okay. What guns were you carrying that day?
I had my sidearm. It's a 1911 45.
Okay.
And my rope rifle, my department issued rifle.
And that's a 223?
Yes.
Okay. What model is that?
It's a JP 15 is the model.
Okay. At any time, did you deploy any of those? Did you fire any of those guns? Okay. I know you said that this was kind of later in the day. What was the weather in that day?
The weather was clear. It was actually really nice. The weather, I'm going to say, was almost 65 degrees.
Okay.
And it was clear, not much wind. The sun was going down, and at the time that it was very close to dusk.
Very close to dusk. Okay. And you had mentioned that was a concern for you.
Yes.
Okay. You had mentioned that Ken Ronzone had arrived on scene as well and kind of took to a northern position.
That's correct.
Ken Ronzone, what unit is he assigned to?
He's K9,
Okay.
and his call sign was 756. So he had, what I understood is he had a team to the north for north containment.
Okay.
And this residential area that's right here, it was important to make sure that we had containment all the way around so that he couldn't get to the neighborhood and effectively harm any people or barricade there.
Okay. Did he have his service dog with him?
Believe so.
Okay. All right. And McFarland, what unit is he assigned to?
McFarland is assigned to SWAT.
SWAT. And he took up a southern perimeter?
Yes.
Containment?
Yes.
Okay. When you arrived on scene, I know you'd mentioned that there were felony charges on Boyd. Did you know specifics about what those charges were?
I believe they were confirmed by Ken Ronzone that it was ag assault on a police officer, and it was on the 2 open space guys that initially made contact with him.
Okay, so aggravated assault on police officers?
Yes.
Okay. Now, based on your training experience, is that a charge that would, trying to figure out the best way to ask this. That would, if you're taking someone into custody, would fall under the, if you needed to use this to deploy a service dog,
Yes.
if the subject was resisting arrest?
Well, what I could say is that K9 would probably be the ultimate response to that, but I know as far as most of the field training is that if we do have felony charges on somebody, that's normally when it fits at least the minimum criteria for a police service dog to be used.
How long do you would you estimate, and just a rough estimate, about how long did you and Weimer-Skirch have dialogue with this guy until it escalated to trying to take him into custody?
I was trying to think about this. I would say close to an hour.
An hour. And what was your primary role at that time while Weimer-Skirch had the dialogue with Boyd?
My primary role at that time was the less lethal option. So that was my responsibility, was to use the less lethal option.
Okay. You said there was talk amongst you and the team about or a concern that he had on a lot of clothing.
Yes.
And the effectiveness of the taser. Can you kind of explain how the taser is deployed and when that taser strikes someone, kind of how it works?
Okay. A taser shotgun round is a less lethal round that offers not much kinetic force, not like a beanbag where it's actually impacting him.
Mm-hmm.
They're moving about 350 feet per second, but it's a relatively light projectile. Mm-hmm. The idea behind it is that it deploys a electro shock, which interrupts the muscle's ability to function. Mm-hmm. The specifics with the taser shotgun round is that it has 3 prongs that act just like a regular taser. They initially deploy and they strike a person mm-hmm. to create that contact with somebody. In addition to that, it has a tethered barb that looks like a cactus almost, mm-hmm. and that creates the 2 different circuits that the taser normally operates on to get that incapacitation with the muscles. On this particular one, we've seen that if it does strike enough close, the round doesn't have the effect of getting to the skin, and it doesn't give that effect. It doesn't get that incapacitation. I've seen it go through clothes before, but not a whole lot of clothes. Like if somebody's wearing a leather jacket or something really thick, it won't get through all that.
Okay.
This one, because he had those shirts on, and I was concerned about hitting him anywhere higher and not being able to get to that skin contact mm-hmm. with that projectile.
Okay. All right. Have you yourself ever felt the effect during training of a taser?
Yes.
And what it does to the body?
Yes.
Okay. And is that part is like a standard training you have to go through?
Yes.
Okay. And have you ever seen the effects of the taser on other people who have been tased?
Yes.
Okay. So giving that your experience with all that, is that why you were saying when you deployed the taser at Boyd, you were not seeing that effect?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. So did that kind of give you the, I guess, did that tell you that possibly the taser was not working?
Yes, or that at some point in time, his ability to work through or fight through whatever it was, and was coupled with the effect of the non-effect of the round.
Okay. And how many taser deployments did you shoot prior to hearing a gunshot?
2.
2. Do you know how many tasers you deployed total?
2.
2. Okay. Kind of going through the whole entire contact with Boyd, how many times did you see Boyd take the knives out from the pockets and put them back in?
There's
estimated
several times.
Several times.
Yeah, I know Gosh, there was, I would say even more than several times, numerous times.
Okay.
I don't know exact number. There was quite a few.
Okay.
Like I said, there was enough for me to notice that his ability to gain access to them was well rehearsed and practiced.
Okay, so it appeared practiced to you?
Yes.
Okay. Were those times, each individual times he would pull out the knives, was it usually or was it always accompanied by a threat? A verbal threat?
Yes.
Okay. And what were those threats again?
We didn't have the authority to take this stuff or take his weapons. And then he said, "I'll fucking kill you." He said that numerous times. He said he didn't want to kill the dog, but he would kill the dog if we sent him up there. And then the threats against the state officer that he was gonna kill him too.
Okay. At any point in time when he would put the knives away or take them out, did you actually ever see him like collapse the blade so the blade was never out?
No, I did not.
Okay. So as far as you saw, the blade was always out?
Yes.
Even when he put them in his pockets?
Yes.
Okay. And you had mentioned that he had put them in the pockets in such a way that he could quickly gain access to them?
Yes.
You'd mentioned something that he said, "I'm not a rapist." Is that something he brought up, or is that something you guys brought up?
No, he said that numerous times. He said that he wasn't a rapist because all homeless people were rapists, and then he said that all prison, how did he say it? Everybody in prison is a rapist. But he said all homeless people are racist, and I'm not homeless. I'm not a rapist. He brought that up.
Okay. You'd mentioned that, the sun's going down and that the lighting was an issue for you. Did you notice that if that particular part of the foothills area, did it have any artificial lighting like you would see on the streets, like street lamps or anything like that?
No, it did not.
Okay. So with the sun going down, would there be any way to illuminate that area without the use of like your flashlights?
No, there would not. I mean, unless we brought in open space vehicles or something like that, but it would have been relatively hard to gain too much light back there, especially in a short amount of time.
Okay. So any light that would have been produced out there would have had to been produced by you guys?
That's correct.
You mentioned that he thrown a sandwich at you, or did he throw it at you or at the dog?
I think he was throwing it at the three of us together, and again, I think he was trying to figure out exactly how far away we were.
Okay. And you said he had said something to the effect like, "Feed your dog"?
Yeah, he kind of, at that sandwich, it did hit pretty close to 754. And when he got it, he said something like, "Yeah, feed your dog." Because 754 picked it up, and he's like, "Yeah, feed your dog," or something like that, something to that effect.
Did the dog appear to go after the sandwich at all?
Yeah, he kind of went to the end of the leash.
Gotcha. Okay. Kind of going back to the taser shotgun real quick. You'd mentioned something about, your concern about the clothing and talking about the deployment at the lower center of mass. Could you kind of describe what's important or specific about aiming at the lower center of mass?
Well, using that round would help stop his movement if that was the case. And because he had the shirts on, I was looking at his pelvis area, because I thought if I can hit him in the pelvis area, I would be able to gain compliance from him, knowing that I could most likely make a good contact outside the shirt area and within still hitting a good mass of his body. So with looking at that, and my idea in targeting that specific area was that I would be able to make a decent contact there. My probability of success was going to be a lot higher by striking there.
Okay.
And that's why I decided to go that route.
Okay. And with the taser shotguns, are you guys trained to fire at lower center of mass?
Yes.
You had mentioned that Keith Sandy had deployed a bang. Can you, is there like a technical term for that thing?
Yes, it's a NFDD, which is noise flash diversionary device.
Okay. And you'd mentioned that you guys utilize this in order to disorient?
That's correct.
Somebody? Okay. Are you guys trained?
Yes.
In using this?
Yes.
Have you used it in the past?
Yes.
Okay. When you've used it in the past, Have you seen people be disoriented from that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. But you said this boy in particular didn't seem affected by it?
No, it seems to agitate him.
Okay. And then you had mentioned that after you'd fired the 2 taser rounds, is that when you noticed that the canine had been deployed?
I don't know exactly when the canine had been deployed. I don't know if it was in between shotgun rounds. I don't know.
Okay. Did you ever see the dog actually attack him or bite him in any way?
I can't say I did.
Okay. You had mentioned that the house is down here where you guys had initially come in from, and where this subject was kind of concerned for you if he was able to maneuver out of there. Can you describe the terrain that you guys are working in and where he was and how that was an issue for you guys to work with?
Okay. The terrain that he had, because it was in an elevated position and it was semi-surrounded by rocks, presented quite a significant advantage for him because he had vision on us and he had position to where he could effectively affect an assault against us and against the houses, and was concerned because of that without giving up any exposure on his part. Because his position was elevated and the position was in between these rocks, made it harder for us to traverse that area very quickly. Once we got to this point, the secondary rock, call that cover 2. Once we got to this position of cover 2, his position was still several feet above us.
Okay.
Looking at him, we had to go uphill to get to him, and he had the advantage of coming downhill to get to us. So the effective range of us going up would take us longer to cover than it would for him to cover down. Also, that because of that, the distance for him to come down towards us at this location afforded him basically, if you take a distance of 10 yards downhill, it effectively makes a safe operating distance between the two of us that much less because he can traverse that area much faster.
Gotcha.
The fact that this particular area with the outcropping of rocks, it afforded him a vision behind cover on this whole neighborhood as well as what areas we have to maneuver in between. So, and my feeling was that because of his position up here, he had a significant advantage against officers that had to be overcome at some point.
Okay. All right. Now, in this particular terrain, in this area, is there any possibility that officers can actually drive in any of this area to try and block him off?
Not without four-wheel drive vehicles from open space.
Okay.
There is a lot of boulders, a lot of cactus, and I believe to get too much higher up here, they would not have been. They can get probably past these boulders and up to this area.
Yeah.
But I don't think they could have really gotten too much further.
Okay. All right. So any movement that would, or any deployment by officers east of the area you've indicated would have to be on foot?
Yes.
Okay. Giving that terrain in mind and the fact that you can't use vehicles, what would be the difference, like say if he went mobile and started running, what would be the difference between him going mobile and running this way as opposed to him going mobile and running in a street in the city and you guys trying to contain him?
So many avenues of escape for him because once he comes down from this position, there's quite a bit of open space area along this trail that he can go, and all these houses were relatively accessible to him if he chose.
Okay.
And east was higher mountain grade, so he couldn't have gone east, so he could have gone north or south or to the west.
Okay. So the easiest way for him to go would be down towards the houses.
That's correct.
Okay. Alrighty. Any other questions?
Just about covered it all.
Okay.
Just to be clear, You said you discharged 2 rounds shotgun.
Taser shotgun.
It was 2 tasers, the dog, and then lethal. Am I correct? Or the bang, the bang,
taser rounds,
2 taser rounds, the dog, and then the lethal.
yes.
Okay.
And how many rounds, bullets did you say you heard?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
Okay.
I heard the first one, but I don't.
And after that, you
couldn't
don't know?
tell. Yeah.
Okay.
I was moving and trying to get around the rock and moving up to come online with them. I don't know.
Okay. When you guys were moving up, right before you heard the shot, do you know if he had managed to get the knives back out of his pockets?
Yes.
He did?
Yes.
So did you see how many knives he was armed with at that time?
At least the right hand.
At least the right hand?
Yes.
And this was after you guys had deployed the bang?
Yes.
And this was after you had deployed 2 taser rounds?
Yes. I think he was arming himself between taser rounds, if I can remember correctly.
Okay. Do you remember if any verbal commands were given to him?
I don't recall.
You don't recall?
No.
Okay. All right. And by the time you got up and you heard the round, do you know approximately how close you were to him? Like, did you guys close distance with him?
Not initially. We did after he fell down between the rocks. So when he spun, he fell this way.
Okay.
And we initially held because he still had those knives until Ramon Ornelas came up and deployed the beanbag round.
Okay.
So we were about the same point, if not maybe a step more than where we were initially.
What's
But
that distance?
the distance from where Keith deployed to target,
Yeah.
probably less than 10 yards.
Less than 10 yards? Okay.
Richard, it was Ornelas that discharged. There was like five rounds beanbag.
I don't remember how many there were.
Okay, but it was Ornelas that did that.
I believe so.
What's his first name?
Ramon?
Ramon.
Yeah, I don't know how many. As he came up between us, I was on the side. I don't know how many he did.
And the guy was already
he was
down.
he was in the
prone.
kind of in a prone position, but he still had. I was off to his right side or to the east, and I could see that as he was laying, his head was between a rock, but his hand had the knife, and it was like this on top of the rock. So
Where was Ornelas while you 3 were in the number 2 position? Where was Ornelas?
I don't know. I don't know where he was, if he was moving up to our position. When we were here, something I'd like to add, because I saw the extra clothes, I called for a beanbag from here, from this position, because I was worried that if he went further back, and if he had, if he'd done anything else, if I had a beanbag and wasn't looking for that taser shotgun to be able, because we would have to move up and take him into custody if we hit him with the taser shotgun. If he was further back or if he tried to throw something at us, I wanted a beanbag up there right away so that I could, if he's trying to throw something at us, we could use the beanbag to gain compliance with him not throwing something or doing some other kind of harm to us. So I called up for a beanbag from 710 from Jim Fox.
Was that over the radio? Or
that was on the radio.
Okay.
And so he had first initially sent another taser shotgun. I said, no, we need a beanbag round. So he had sent one of his SWAT guys with a beanbag double time up here, because I asked him, I said, we need it ASAP. In case anything changed up here and the taser shotgun wasn't going to work, I wanted to have a beanbag there.
And that would have been Ornelas.
And he was coming with it. And so was, I think Dom Pettis had it too.
Oh, okay.
So they were bringing them up double time to us in case we needed a beanbag.
Okay. Is there anything else about this incident that you believe is important that I have not asked?
No. I was afraid, honestly, that based on his position and when I initially deployed the taser shotgun rounds, and I could see that they didn't have the desired effect that we needed to gain compliance, I was afraid because I knew we were too close for a knife assault, in my honest opinion. I thought because they didn't work, I thought, I was afraid because he was going to come downhill towards us at a very quick rate. So I could say I was extremely afraid.
Okay. Have you ever had any training on like the distance of edge weapons and how quickly someone could attack you with an edged weapon?
And the common rule was the 7 yards or 21 feet. I know that Force Science has done some studies with that. They say it could be anywhere up to 30 feet. So I knew I was, and like I said, in my honest opinion, we were within distance of that assault, and I felt in fear that that could happen to any one of us, including 754 and his police service dog. I felt that there was an imminent attack coming.
All right. Actually, another question I had for you. Throughout this incident, did you ever see any, because, I myself hike up there a lot, ride my bike and stuff. Did you see any civilian hikers, people walking around, anything like that?
Initially, when I first got there, there was. I know we attempted to get perimeter. Once we got the open space guys, I think they blocked the south trailhead, and we had somebody on the north trailhead. Because when we were initially there, I can remember Ken Manzone or 756 was a little bit to my north, and he had turned a couple people the other way. So we had stopped civilian traffic out there.
Okay. And what day was this again? Sunday.
Yes.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, if you don't have anything else, we'll go ahead and end the interview at 0929. Good.
Do me a favor.